Welcome to Business Insights, your one-stop shop for business development around the globe. The goal is to provide information that will help you thrive in your business endeavors. I am Olaoluwa Awe, and today's conversation will be on commercial and business contracts. But before that comes the business news. Stay tuned. This is the business news on Business Insight. My name is Olaoluwa Awe. For the past 13 quarters in a row, Nigeria's oil and gas industry, which includes crude oil and natural gas, has been shrinking in terms of its economic values. This started in the second quarter of 2020 when the world faced an economic slowdown due to COVID-19. The part of the industry that processes crude oil, called oil refining, has also been getting smaller since the second quarter of 2018. Because of this, Nigeria has been buying more refined oil from other countries instead of making it themselves. Even though the oil and gas industry only makes up about 5% of the country's total money-making activities, GDP, it brings in more than 85% of the money the government needs to run things in the big country. The Nigerian government is trying to use its large reserves of natural gas better, get foreign companies to invest money, make plans to create electricity from gas, and fix things like pipelines. And moving on, fuel queues have reappeared in some filling stations in Lagos and Ogun State and other parts of the southwestern region of Nigeria due to oil pipeline theft causing supply disruptions. Long queues at filling stations and congestion on roads have become common in recent years. But pipeline vandalism is a significant contributor to the shortage, impacting both Lagos and the broader southwest region. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, has become the primary importer influencing market pricing after private marketers struggled with foreign exchange rates and reduced operations. Efforts to stabilize the situation and ongoing, including addressing pipeline vandalism and anticipating relief from the upcoming Dangote refinery production. And away from that, in response to social media comments suggesting that Dangote Cement sells cement at higher rates in Nigeria compared to countries like Benin Republic, Dangote Cement PLC's management has clarified the pricing of cement bags within Nigeria, saying as of August 28, 2023, the cost of a cement bag is 4,010 naira in Okpela and 4,640 naira in Ibeshe, Obajana and Boko. According to the group managing director of Dangote Cement, Arvind Pathak, to reflect transportation and delivery locations, prices of the cement may vary from 5,000 naira to 5,300 naira per bag. On the other hand, in Benin Republic, the cost of cement ranges from 3,495 sefa to 4,500 sefas per bag. And with the current exchange rate of 1 sefa to 1.43 naira, which is approximately 4,997 naira to about 6,435 naira per bag, the figures are slightly higher than the price in Nigeria. And moving on, the opening of Cameroon's Lagdo Dam raises concerns about flooding in Nigerian states, potentially impacting around 3.04 million local farmers benefiting from the Central Bank of Nigeria's Anchor Borrowers Program. With rising water levels in states like Benue, Anambra and Niger, approximately 700 billion naira in loans extended through the program is at risk. The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, warns that up to 13 states could be affected, jeopardizing agricultural activities and economic stability. Despite 289.1 billion naira disbursed to 1.25 million farmers across 19 states, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, notes that only 24% of the loans have been successfully repaid. Implementing agricultural insurance programs that protect farmers against natural disasters like flooding could provide financial security in case of such emergencies in Nigeria. And the second largest mobile operator in Uganda, Airtel Uganda, is planning to raise $216 million in an initial public offering (IPO) to fund its expansion plans. The company will sell a 20% stake in the offering, which is expected to start on the 1st of September and close on the 13th of October. The IPO will be the second listing of a telecoms company on Uganda's stock exchange after MTN Uganda in December 2021. Airtel Uganda expects to pay dividends of $500 million in 2023 and will target a dividend payout ratio of 95% of retained earnings or net profit after tax, which is higher. The company made a pre-tax profit of $474 million in calendar year 2022, down from $565 million the previous year, but its revenue is forecasted to grow 16.6% year-on-year in 2023. The IPO is a positive development for Airtel Uganda and for the Ugandan economy as a whole. It will help raise much-needed capital for the company's expansion plans, and it will also provide an opportunity for local investors to participate in the growth of the telecom sector. Away from Africa, a multinational conglomerate, 3M, has agreed to pay $6 billion to settle roughly 300,000 lawsuits, alleging that the company supplied faulty combat airplugs to the military. The settlement, which the company says is not an admission of liability, will come over several years and encompass $5 billion in cash and $1 billion in stock. The airplugs, made by Aero Technologies, a company that 3M acquired in 2008, were used by the United States military in training and combat from year 2003 to 2015. Veterans accused 3M of selling defective airplugs that caused hearing loss and tinnitus. This is a major financial hit for 3M, which is facing a number of other lawsuits over its products. The settlement is also a reminder for businesses to consider the long-term consequences of product on consumers. Now, the number of available jobs in the United States fell for the third consecutive month in July 2023, dropping below 9 million for the first time since early 2021. Decline in job openings suggests that the labor market is starting to cool, which could help to ease inflation. Bureau of Labor Statistics said that there were over 8.8 million job openings in July, down from 9.16 million in June, after economists anticipated openings to fall to about 9.46 million. The decline in job openings was accompanied by a drop in the number of new hires, which fell to 5.77 million from 5.94 million. Quits also fell to 3.549 million from 3.802 million. The Federal Reserve has been hoping for more slack in the labor market since an imbalance between worker demand and supply could cause wages to rise and ultimately add upward pressure on inflation. Now, the central bank has tried to tame higher prices by ratcheting up interest rate in efforts to throw cold water on demand. It is now time to feed you updates from the stock market. Stay tuned to Business Insights. At the conclusion of the second trading day of the week on the Nigerian Stock Exchange (NGX), a total of over 311 million shares were exchanged in 7,193 transactions, amounting to a market value of more than 3 billion. When compared to the previous day, the fresh data reflects a 13% decrease in trading volume, an 8% reduction in turnover, but a 9% increase in the number of transactions. The present market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange stands at 36.2 trillion naira. In total, 117 equities listed on the NGX and took part in trading activities. The day ended with 34 gainers and 24 losers. Leading the gainers was Dangote Sugar Refinery with a remarkable 10% increase in its share price, closing at 52.25 naira per share. This was followed by Transcorp Nigeria, Thomas Wyatt Nigeria, and Umatech Ventures, all of which also recorded a 10% surge in their share prices. On the flip side, the top losers included Computer Warehouse Group, which experienced a significant 10% price decline, ending the day at 4.50 naira per share. Following closely were John Holt with a 9.8% decrease, NEM Insurance Company with a 9.54% dip, and Secure Electronic Technology with a 9.09% fall in share prices. Now, in terms of trading volume, Access Holdings took the lead with 43.7 million shares traded, followed by Transco Nigeria with 28.5 million shares, Dangote Sugar Refinery with 16 million shares, and Consolidated Hallmark Insurance with 15.6 million shares traded. Away from Nigeria, at the conclusion of the initial trading day, or at the Bourse Regional des Valeurs Mobilières Stock Exchange, that's the BRVM, a total of over 209,000 shares were traded, reflecting a market value of West African CFA franc, more than 462 million of that. This data, when compared to the previous BRVM trading day, highlighting a 38% increase in the turnover, present a market capitalization of the BRVM stock exchange standing at 7.68 trillion franc. Collectively, 43 equities listed on the BRVM participated in trading activities, culminating in 9 gainers and 21 losers. Bolloré Transport and Logistics took the lead among the gainers, experiencing a 2.67% rise in its share price and closing at 1,540 francs per share. Following closely were Bank of Africa, Mali with a 2.19% increase, and CFAO Motors Côte d'Ivoire with a 1.58% rise, and Crown CM Côte d'Ivoire with a 1.52% uptick. Conversely, the top losers include Seitab Côte d'Ivoire, witnessing a significant end-of-day price decline of 6.21% at 5,815 per share. This was followed by Ecobank Transnational with a 5.56% decrease, and CRE Côte d'Ivoire with 4.78% drop, and Souq Côte d'Ivoire with a 4.76% decrease in share price. In terms of trading volume, Ecobank Transnational recorded the highest with 37,848 shares traded, followed by Onatel Burkina Faso with 23,761 shares. Then Souq Côte d'Ivoire with 18,315 shares, as well as CRE Côte d'Ivoire with 15,606 shares traded. Now let's get to the commodities market. In the commodities market, specific patterns emerged. Wheat in particular attracted attention, currently holding a value of 575.25 US cents per unit. The enduring popularity of the precious metal gold continues to be evident as it maintains a significant price of $1,935.39 US dollars per ounce. Similarly, silver closely followed gold's path with a value of $24.71 per ounce, while copper lags slightly behind at $3.75 per pound. Now, moving our focus to the energy sector, Brent crude oil is presently valued at $84.68 US dollars. At the currency markets, the gap between Nigeria's official and parallel foreign exchange markets has widened to 150 naira per dollar from 96 naira per dollar after the currency unification in June. The naira dropped to 920 naira to 925 naira per dollar in the parallel market due to high demand for the greenback, while intraday trading showed a 1.09% depreciation to 920 to 925 naira per dollar. The official I&E window quoted the dollar at 775.34 naira. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, unified the FX market in June 2023 with the aim to minimize differentials between segments, though Chief Executive Muda Yusuf noted that small discrepancies are expected. And that's the market trend for now on Business Insights. I am Olaoluwa Awe. Coming up is the conversation on commercial and contract law. Welcome back to Business Inside. This is the part where we talk about commercial law, the legal aspects of businesses, especially looking at contracts. Who are the parties involved in a contract? What are the things that must be done to ensure that the contract is safe and right and it reflects the interest of the parties involved? What are also the things you must do to ensure that in case the contract is breached while you are doing a business transaction, you can go to court and you can get justice? These are some of the things we'll be talking about on the show today. But before that, let's get to a report we have for you. After that, we'll have a guest, a legal practitioner, educate us on how to adequately craft a contract.
In the world of business, commercial and contract laws are the rules that guide how people and companies make deals. These laws help decide how contracts are made, followed, and enforced when people do business together. Whether you're writing an agreement, dealing with a business dispute, or signing a contract, these laws set the stage for how things work. Importantly, these laws ain't limited to one place. They apply locally and globally. They make sure that business is conducted fairly and transparently. No matter where you are, they are there to make sure everyone's rights are protected and they are doing business. At their core, these laws create a system that promotes fairness and honesty in business. They set up the rules for what makes a valid contract, protect everyone's rights, and provide solutions if someone doesn't follow the rules. They're all about building trust and making sure business relationship works well. Working with commercial and contract laws means dealing with legally binding agreements. It involves understanding how these are made, what terms everyone agrees to, and what happens if someone doesn't keep their end of the deal. These laws cover many areas like competition, intellectual property, and protecting consumers. In essence, commercial and contract law are the invisible thread that ties together a business deal. They go beyond just legal rules. They're about making sure business is done fairly, honesty, and according to the law, keeping the principle of trust, integrity, and legality alive in the business world. Chama Corporal, Souq News.
Welcome back to Business Insight. It is now time to talk extensively on commercial law and contract as an extension. I am Olaoluwa Awe, and the guest for this conversation is Adesola Fagbemi. Adesola Fagbemi is a legal practitioner and a litigator in corporate commercial transactions, and when he is ready, we will engage him on that. But we do need to really talk about what commercial law is all about on the show today. And commercial law, also known as the business law, is a branch of law that governs various legal aspects of business and commercial transactions, and it encompasses a wide range of topics that regulate how businesses operate, interact, and resolve disputes. That is very, very important. And we're talking about the different types of contracts in this case, the different kind of business entities. We'll be talking about corporate governance, and we will be talking about commercial transactions and the features, the things that must happen before a commercial transaction is finalized. Another key element of commercial law here is consumer protection. The whole idea of having a legal angle to your business is to ensure that the consumers are protected, and also the business is protected in case disputes arise. We also talk about the antitrust and competition law. We talk about laws that promote fair competition and prevent anti-competitive behavior such as monopolies and price fixings. You know, there was a recent case in Europe or in the United Kingdom where, you know, there are regulators that come into place whenever a company wants to acquire another company, because there are some companies that are big enough to acquire all their competitors and cause a case of monopoly in the market, and there are regulators to ensure that that doesn't happen, knowing the pros and the cons of monopoly in an industry. And we'll also be talking about bankruptcy and insolvency. These are key aspects of the commercial law. I will talk about ensuring that transactions are secured and solid, and we'll talk about international trade law as well, because it's very important to pay attention to the commercial law, because there are different laws that guide different businesses in different countries. But at this juncture, let me bring in the guests today, the legal practitioner and the litigator in corporate commercial transaction. His name is Adesola Fagbemi. Good morning, Mr. Fagbemi.
Good morning. It's a pleasure of being here.
Good morning, Mr. Fagbemi. Mr. Fagbemi, could you please unmute yourself so that we can hear you clearly? I can't hear you loud and clearly.
Can you hear me?
Hello, Mr. Fagbemi.
Can you hear me?
Okay, I believe there's a technical issue there. Our technical crew will try to work on that. I'll continue with helping you understand the different aspects of commercial law and contracts we want to touch on today. An essential part of commercial law is also the employment law. You know, it helps to guide the relationship between the employer and the employee, you know, so that people's rights will not be infringed upon. It highlights the legal rights and responsibilities of employers and employees, including topics like employment contracts, workplace discrimination, and labor unions. You see how the commercial law and the contracts, you know, come into place, because contract itself is an essential part of commercial law. And we'll talk about regulatory compliances. The commercial law is also there to talk about the importance of adhering to industry-specific regulations and standards and the legal aspects of it. If you do not comply, what are the things that could happen to your business in that situation? Now, we'll talk about, it's really a broad and dynamic field, and the application of some of the things we'll be talking about can vary. It depends on the unique, you know, circumstance your business finds itself, and that is why it is very, very important to pay attention. But let me really talk about contract and transaction. When we get to that point, we'll be emphasizing on the importance of contracts in commercial transactions, how contracts outline the rights, the obligations, and the responsibilities of parties involved in this business dealings. This and many more we will be talking about on the show today. And we'll also be discussing different types of business entities, such as the sole proprietorship, the partnerships, corporations, the limited liability companies, their characteristics and their advantages from the legal point. I think we touched on this yesterday when we talked about registering businesses in Nigeria. You know, when we started this series on Monday, we helped you understand that legalizing a business is very, very important, because it makes you very visible and identifiable in the eyes of the law. For example, if you're not a registered business, your business cannot sue another business or sue someone as a registered institution. And that is why this is really very, very important. And we also talked about how the type of business you want to run will determine the registration that you do with the Corporate Affairs Commission of Nigeria. We'll go on a short break. We will be right back with the conversation on commercial law and contracts. Welcome back to Business Insights and the conversation on commercial law and contracts. And this time, I believe Adesola Fagbemi is ready for us. Is technically ready for the conversation. Welcome back, Mr. Fagbemi. Yes, it's good to finally hear your voice. Thank you very much. So let's introduce us to commercial law. You know, I have attempted to give a brief overview of what it is, but let's also hear from you. What is commercial law and why is it very important for businesses?
Thank you very much once again. Generally speaking, commercial law is a branch of civil law. Everything that pertains to commercial law is all about our daily lives, practices, civil law. And also it has a broader range. It's a branch of public and private law at the same time. Generally speaking, we are to talk about commercial law, so to speak, is the type of law that that centers on regulation, talking about regulation, business regulation of commerce, of every form of transaction, contract arising from commercial contracts and other trade and sales of goods. Could be sales of goods by carriage of goods by air, by land, and the like. It has a broader objective.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Let us really focus on contracts now, like we said we would. And what are the key components of a business contract?
Basically, there are key components of a business contract. They are offer acceptance, consideration, intention to be legally bound, capacity. Whichever person that is entering into contractual relations must first of all ensure that it falls within this ambit. There must be an offer, a substituting offer, acceptance, consideration, and capacity and intention to be legally bound before we can say properly that there is a contract or commercial contract.
Okay, so let us break some of these things down to simpler terms that people can understand. We'll start with offer. Why is it important for there to be an offer when you're drafting a contract?
You know, usually there are parties to a legal contract, and a contract cannot just exist on its own, cannot stand on its own without a subsisting offer. And when offer is made, there must be a corresponding acceptance of the offer. And you know, we have the authority in locus classicus case of, let's say, Carbolic Smoke Company, versus Khalil. You know, it has been a kind of age-long relationship that exists between two parties. Even offer can be made to the rest of the world, not to a person. And once, you know, that's the purport of that authority, Queen's Bench Division. When offer was made to the member of the public, and as soon as one person steps forward to receive it, then there's a legal contract. So it is as that, you know, as little as that.
Yes, I think for those who are just tuning in, we'll just really point out that a contract is a legally binding agreement between two or more parties that would explain the terms and conditions under which they agree to fulfill certain responsibilities or perform certain actions. And let's talk about this contract. Do business contracts have to be written? Can we have verbal contracts? Are they legal?
You know, by the requirement of Statute of Fraud 1677, you know, there have been an understanding that, you know, before you can enter into a legal contract, it must be in writing, it must be evidence in writing, so as to, you know, ensure that a party will not renege or and say that there have not been a contract But that is not to say that oral contract cannot also be enforceable. But from the fact that there's a law that stated that by Section 4 of Statute of Frauds, 1677, I laid down the foundation that a contract that dates back to number of years should be evidenced in writing. So there's no ambiguity in this regard.
Okay, so when you talked about offer, can we just put these things in perspective for giving examples? What are examples of offers in this scenario?
Well, there will be offer for tender, offer to tender made to the public with respect to an operation or business operation, and whichever company that is competent enough can accept it, then there will now be a kind of parameter set for the contract to fly. And also there could also be some other business offers that exist, even in shares, in capacity of shares, when a public a company or corporation that has been quoted is giving to the member of the public the opportunity to subscribe to its shares. So it's a form of offer. At the point that a person has shown his intention to go into the business relation, then there's acceptance. So that's our offer. It will also be from real estate perspective, where offer is made to the subscribers. Subscribers are members of the public to an estate, or it could be a joint development offer. It could be a lease to own offer, and it can be in any form. But once a party steps forward, then the offer can be complete. Though there can be counter offers that destroys counter offer destroy the existing offer. So that is the reason why offer must be clear, precise, and acceptance shouldn't entertain any ambiguity.
Thank you very much. You know, just to put that in perspective, as if a contract is being drawn, there has to be somebody offering to provide something or to do something. It depends on the number of parties you have involved. Offer simply means commitment. Somebody should be committed to doing one thing, and the other parties involved in the contract should also have agreed. That's where the agreement he mentioned comes in. You know, this happens when people are negotiating, when you want to partner with companies. It depends. There has to be something you are bringing to the table, and for it to be a valid contract, the other parties in that discussion must also have agreed to what you are bringing to the table, and they must also have what they are bringing to the table in response to your own offer. I believe that is what you was talking about there. Now, let's talk about intention to make it legal. I understand that that's also a factor in creating contracts. Could you please throw more light on that?
Thank you very much. Intention to create a legal relation or to be legally bound is one of the essentials of a valid contract. And you know, intention to be legally bound can be read from intention of party to the contractual agreement. We can see a recent case of 2019 case between MTN Communications Limited and Corporate Communications Investment Limited, where the matter proceeded to court. And MTN, the appellant's position was that there had not been an acceptance of the offer. There's no intention to enter into legal relation, but the court disagreed. The Supreme Court disagreed, saying that for the fact that a party withheld its signature, didn't execute the contract, does not, preclude the parties to say that they cannot go ahead to enforce such contract, where there have been several correspondences between parties. Intention to be legally bound basically is all about intentions of parties, and that is what the court read. Even in, let's just say, in our everyday relation, let's say in commercial transport system. And I think member of the public can relate to that easily. When you want to board a commercial transport, a bus, you will see that the conductor will wait on you and call passenger in that, okay, I'm taking you to this particular, it could be Maryland or elsewhere. Once the passenger steps into the bus, once it's on the bus, then a contract has been established. You have to pay for the T-fare. So intention to enter into legal relation can also be inferred in that instances.
Now, let's talk about capacity. Let's talk about capacity. You know, this has been a major issue with a good number of contracts, especially when it comes to the part where you want to go and enforce it in the court. What role does capacity play in contract drafting?
The role of capacity of parties to a valid contract cannot be overemphasized. You know, everything stems from the statutes, everything stems from Companies and Allied Matters Act, and we have the recent, amendment of the law 2020. So to speak, let's say Section 20 has laid down the foundation with respect to capacity of parties. If you are to contract, you must be a person of age. At least you must have attained the age of 18 years. And at the same time, you mustn't be a lunatic. A lunatic cannot enter into a valid contract, except if it's joined by next of friend or committees in lunacy. So capacity is essential in that regard. So a person that is minor can be joined by, let's say, a single adult if the person wants to form a company. So capacity is essential. If the person is not of age or is a person of unsound mind, the person cannot contract validly in the eyes of law.
Now, this capacity, does it also come to play when you're having like a contract that is really heavy on money with someone? For example, you want to strike a deal with someone. For a good number of people who invest in companies, you know, there are times when you invest an amount of money, there's a contract with the company promising you to give you certain returns. And when it's time for the returns, the companies tell you they don't have the capacity to pay that amount. So explain capacity from that angle. If you go to court with that kind of contract, will you really get some justice?
You know, that's a tricky one. And for the sake of our viewers, I'd like to deal with that specifically. You know, if you are dealing with a company, so to speak, if an individual or another company is dealing with a company, you must first of all do your due diligence. Ensure that they are a legal entity. You know, before a company can assume the status of a person in law, it must have been incorporated, at least under the Part A of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020. A company that is not incorporated is not a company, so to speak. We cannot say that a person can contract validly if you enter into legal relation with a company that has not come to existence. Except if the company has a promoter, you can go ahead to sue the promoter, because there would have been a pre-incorporation contract that would have been, entered into prior.
You know, I also want to quickly say one or two things about the points you made earlier, about age and how it determines the capacity, for you to go into a contract with that person. And that's why it's that a good number of times, if you really want to do it right, for example, if you want to have a business relationship with a minor, it is important that the guardian who is of age is involved. And how do you really play the game along that line? Because if the person you really want to do it or the brand you really want to do it is that of a minor, what are the things you must put in place?
If you want to enter into contracts of such where a minor is involved, but such kind of contracts to be enforceable in law, it must satisfy one of the requirements of capacity, which is age. Age is a factor. The age issue would be construed that maybe you are taking advantage of a youth or of a minor. So such a contract can be vitiated if proper due diligence is not done. You would have known that the person is not of age. The person could be 16 years. And this age, as we have it, a person of 16 years could look like 23 years. So due diligence is important. And in contract, there must also be a foundation for utmost good faith in whatever we do, utmost good faith. Ibrahim Fidel is the concept in commercial law. If you want to contract, you must make full disclosure before anything can happen. But capacity in itself is important as an essential of a valid contract.
Now, I believe we already started on that path, but one of the major issues people have with contracts is getting it enforced in courts. And why do you think it's been very difficult for some people to enforce their contracts in court? And what do you think people can do to ensure that their contracts are enforceable?
Thank you for that question. Contract itself cannot speak, especially when there's breach of that legal contract. There are some fundamental terms of contract that are written into the contract. But these days, sometimes enforcement of contract has been a major problem, and considering the litigation space, and the fluctuation of cases coming to courts in Nigeria, and the experiences that people have. But the law is currently advancing. But the fundamental issue that relates to enforcement of contract is whether the contract satisfies all the requirements of a valid contract. And that is the reason why you must, employ the service of a lawyer before drawing up a contract. As a matter of fact, it's a crime for an individual to draw up a contract on his own. So basically, one of the impediments for the enforcement, one of the basic impediments of enforcement of a valid contract, is the issue of ensuring that the contract itself satisfies all the basic essential elements of the valid contract, whether there's an offer, whether there's an acceptance, whether there's consideration, whether there's capacity written in it, and intention to enter into legal relation. Everything must, coincide. There have been plethora of Supreme Court cases that supports the position. If all these elements are not present, the party going to court may not be successful.
Now, let's talk about breach of contract. For a good number of people, this is really subjective.
Please speak up so that I can hear you properly.
Can you hear me better now? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
So we're talking about breach of contract. What qualifies as breach of contract in the first place?
As I said, there are certain obligations that are written in a valid commercial contract. There are do's and don'ts, and there are contractual terms. Once a party to a legal contract has breached the fundamental or implied terms of the contract, the other party who has suffered a great loss can approach a competent court of law for the enforcement of that contract. So those are the things that are extant in a valid contract. They call them covenants. Those covenant obligations, once they are infringed on, a party can approach a competent court.
Now, you mentioned something earlier. You mentioned something earlier that it is a crime in Nigeria for people to enter into contracts without a lawyer. I would need you to explain that. If I want to do a simple business deal with a colleague of mine, can't we just draw up a paper, you know, state what we want to do, state my offer, state the person's offer, state our agreement, put our signatures, and go on with our business? Would that not be viable in court?
Anyway, it's a good question. You know, sometimes even, let me say, some private companies, sole proprietorship, they can write up or draw up an offer without the input of a lawyer. But most often times, it's advisable that company secretary is present with respect to company limited by shares to advise on the condition of the offer. Usually some company will hire in-house counsel. And today we know that the Companies and Allied Matter Act 2020 has also given a leadway for an individual who is not a legal practitioner to act in such capacity, provided he has the knowledge of a business deal, or who is abreast with the condition present in offer, who can advise appropriately. But it is advisable that a lawyer is hired or advised with respect to offer or drawing up an offer, which is also seen as a contract in itself.
Now, let's get back to the conversation of breach of contract. In a situation where you discover that a party you have entered into contract with has breached the terms of the contract, what are the consequences that should follow? You know, we talk about things like maybe fines, you talk about things like compensations. Could you just explain those terms?
Anyway, it depends on the mode and manner of such breach. But in business contracts, a person that has suffered from the consequence or the action of the other party to a contract can approach a court and ask for damages, special damages, consequential damages. It could be specific performance. There's damages for specific performance could also be requested in court by the attorney. And injunction in certain cases can also lie. You know, there are forms of injunction as we have it. So I think those are the options open to the contractual parties.
And let's also ask, what's the cost of getting a lawyer to help you draw up a contract? And what's the cost of also getting justice in case your terms were breached and you want to go to court in Nigeria?
Anyway, it is tricky. This one is a tricky one, but I will still answer it. It depends on the company that is engaging your services, be it a corporation or a company limited by shares or an individual. You know, you have to, there's a scale of charges, scale of billing with respect to legal practitioner, you know, acting on behalf of its clients. If it's a multinational company, you know, there are several multinational companies that enter into contractual agreements that runs to billions of dollars. You know, if we are to look at amount to be charged and state it that way, it will be enormous. But it has to, you know, dwell within the ambit of scale of charges. Sometimes you charge in dollars, US dollars, which is the standard practice with respect to, you know, representing multinationals, you know,
now,
like transaction.
Thank you very much. Let's
But with
quickly
respect to company whereby shares, sorry?
let's quickly touch on types of contracts. Earlier, you had advised that it's better for contracts to be put on pen and paper or to be typed, to be made written. But then it is believed that when you take your money to the market and you buy a product, it is believed that a contract has just happened. And that's why you see that a good number of times when consumers don't get their money's worth for products, or when there's that product has an effect, a negative effect on them, they go to court. It is assumed that a subtle contract, an indirect a contract has been made with the organization selling the product. So let's talk about the types of contracts that we have along that line.
Thank you very much for that. For the purpose of enlightenment, there are several contracts that could be drawn up between an organization, between individual and organization. Some are service contracts, and some are JVs, joint ventures agreements, a form of contract. And also, deed of legal mortgage is a contract. Even tenancy agreements or leases, they are contracts. The word contracts is not limited to a certain transaction. In hire purchases, there could be hire purchase agreements. Also, there could be an agreement between parties, which is also a contract for transportation of goods.
Thank you very much.
It could be by air.
Thank you
very
much.
It could be by land.
Thank you.
It could also be by other means, pipeline.
Thank you very much, Adesola Fagbemi. Thank God you have made mention of the types of contracts that we have, because the next conversation we'll have will be on the terms and conditions of those contracts, the pros and cons. And that's where we wrap things up on today's program. We've had Adesola Fagbemi, a legal practitioner and a litigator in corporate commercial transactions. We'll continue our conversation on the legal aspect of businesses tomorrow on Business Insights. My name is Olaoluwa Awe. Thank you very much for joining the show.